A few years ago, my children said they were taking me home, but the car stopped at Maple Ridge Care. No expressions, no words. The doors slid shut. Inside me, a hollow opened. Each time I think back, I go quiet, tuck the bruise into the pocket of my cardigan, and pour tea. Time has moved like a long corridor. Today they are back, voices gentled, saying they want to bring me home and care for me. I look at those familiar, foreign faces and I understand. What they want isn't the dip in the old chair or the cinnamon in my kitchen. They want a signature, a line in a will, the remainder of a life put away tidy. I'm not angry or in a hurry. I have prepared a different path for love. And for what I own, my children don't know. There's a moment coming that will leave them speechless. What moment? If you're curious, keep listening. I am Eleanor Ellie Hart, 75. I remember my old garden, each petal a message, from a day that chose to stay. Here, the air wears disinfectant and voices. I tell myself, Ellie, the road home doesn't have to retrace its steps. Home can be a cup steeped right, a window to lean on, a key that turns because the hand is yours. I keep my back straight in the cafeteria, eat slowly, save the orange for later. In the evenings, I press my palm to the window and inventory what still belongs to me, my name, my breath, my stubborn flame. I fold that flame into the pocket of my cardigan and walk the corridor until fear grows bored. On the bulletin board, there's a flyer for a neighborhood yard sale across the street. I circle the date with a dull pencil. Maybe I cannot go back, but I can go toward. That, I decide, will be enough for now. Mark calls me sweet mom, his voice the chill of a metal spoon. Jenna smiles thin as paper, ready to tear. I don't ask why. The answer already lives in the neat columns of a savings book and the tremor in my old signatures. They bring flowers I can't keep, and stories polished smooth from telling new projects. Tight markets, how the city is better for everyone. Their words hover like steam, warm but weightless. Mark tidies the tray table, Jenna straightens my cardigan, fingers brushing the pocket where I keep my small certainties. I let them fuss. Age teaches you to measure storms, not stop them. When Mark mentions realtors just in case you ever want less to manage, I stir my tea and watch the tag circle the rim. I hear what isn't said, equity, probate. While we can still help, I nod, the way mothers nod when children are practicing the truth in partials. I don't argue. I inventory. I keep my questions for someone who will answer them. And I make a quiet note the next signature I give will belong wholly to me. I learn the meal times, the pill hours, a few new names that arrive with plastic pitchers of water. Ruth, who loves crosswords. Cal, who whistles hymns. Mrs. Patel, who keeps almonds in her pocket for emergencies of the spirit. I practice a smile that is tidy and friendly, the kind you wear to keep hands from touching where it hurts. It works. People nod. They move on. That night, I open the drawers of my memory and count, one by one, the choices that brought me here. The first compromise I called temporary, the late bill I paid from pride instead of asking for help. The conversation I postponed because love would understand. I count the house keys I handed to children who were rushing, the papers I signed when the room felt too small for breath. I do not scold the woman I was. I sit with her. I pour her tea. We agree on this much? Tomorrow needs a different kind of yes, and a door only I can open. Through the window, I see a house across the street, a weathered porch, and a sun-faded sign for sale. It stands by itself the way I do upright, chipped, waiting. The lawn is patchy, the shutters tilt like tired eyelids, but something in its posture feels honest. Loneliness, I've learned, is a clear price tag. Freedom has one too. I press my palm to the glass and let the cool steadiness travel into my bones. If independence demands a quieter room and a thinner calendar, I will pay. I imagine sweeping that porch, choosing a light bulb, deciding where the teaspoons go, tiny sovereignties, ordinary as rain. A nurse wheels past and asks if I need anything. I say, not yet, and we both hear the word, yet ring like a small bell. Across the street, a curtain stirs, the house breathes. I whisper back, so faint only I can hear. Wait for me, I'm coming home another way, very, very soon. I open the small envelope hidden beneath the lining of my handbag, the savings from years of after-hours typing. Letters and invoices humming under my fingers while the house slept. It isn't much by city standards, but it is mine. Money with calluses, money that remembers every receipt. I smooth the deposit slips like old photographs and feel my back straighten. Dignity grows best in earned soil. I dial Arthur Blake, my late husband's attorney, and ask if he still has patience for an old widow with a stubborn plan. He says he has more patience than plans these days, and laughs softly, the way men laugh when they've learned to listen. I tell him I intend to buy the house across the street, alone. He tells me which documents to fetch, which questions to ignore. When I hang up, I clip the envelope inside my cardigan, over my heart, and whisper steady. Ellie, paper can be fragile, resolve cannot. Arthur listens without verdict. He asks only one question. Where do you want to live, I say, where I can steep my own tea and lock the door with a key that knows my hand? He breathes, then says, that's clear enough. He outlines steps like stones across waterproof of funds. Inspection, insurance, a title search. I write them down in fat pencil, pressing hard so the words don't wander. He doesn't mention my children. I don't either. We leave their names in the quiet where they belong. Before we hang up, he says, you'll need witnesses. I answer, I have neighbors with eyes for kindness. When the line clicks dead, I sit for a long minute and let the room settle around my choice. The radiator ticks like an old clock agreeing. A life distills to what you can turn and carry. A cup, a key, a will that fits inside your chest and refuses to be misplaced. I schedule the showing. My pulse stays even as the pen touches the earnest money line. I'm not buying back the past. I'm buying the right to arrange a future in my own order. The agent talks about square footage, comps, contingencies. I nod, attending to what matters, light in the kitchen. A railing firm under the hand, a bedroom that forgives creaky knees at dawn. We walk the rooms while dust performs its small ballet in the sun. I test every window, every stubborn latch. Choice is a muscle. Today, mine holds. When the offer goes through, the agent congratulates me like I've won something. I have. I've won the next choice, and the next, in the quiet after paperwork. I make a list for moving day kettle, 2 cups, the good blanket, the framed photo that remembers us laughing. I add one more line. Fresh soap. A new house deserves a first wash of grace. For hands, heart, and hopeful mornings, Mark asks, where did you get the money? Mom. I tell the truth. From the years I trusted work more than luck. He studies me as though I've stepped out of a photograph he doesn't remember taking. Perhaps that's fair. The woman he expects would apologize or stall. I pour tea instead and let the silence earn its keep. He paces, mentions expenses, the market, how timing is everything. I nod, timing is everything. So is ownership. I remind him my name is still on my pulse, my breath, my keys. He says he only wants what's best. I say I do, too. We end the visit with polite hugs that feel borrowed. At the door, he asks again, softer. I answer, softer still, steady work, quiet years. The truth is rarely dramatic. It is simply difficult to spend. Jenna waits in the hall, eyes careful. I meet them kindly. Some distances deserve bridges, some require a shoreline to return. I leave Maple Ridge Care quietly. No one stops me. At my age, freedom sometimes arrives because no one wants to own you anymore. I sign the discharge papers. Thank the nurse who remembered I like my tea light, and my blankets heavy. The automatic doors part, and the air outside is honest with cold. I stand a moment, letting it enter me, patient as truth. The taxi driver lifts my suitcase like it weighs my years and sets it down gently. We ride without chatter. I memorize the turns left at the Maple, right at the bakery with the crooked sign, straight until the sidewalk remembers home. When we stop, I pay in cash, count the change twice, and step onto a porch that creaks my name. Behind me, the taxi pulls away, small as a toy, and I understand when you are no longer carried. Your steps finally make a sound you can trust. Welcome back, old girl. The new house is old and honest paint peeling, roof weeping, floors that remember other winters. Yet the wood breathes. Under the damp, there's a heartbeat. I set the kettle on the cold stove, a rehearsal for warmth, and walk the rooms like someone reading a letter from a long-ago friend. The bathroom mirror leans. I straighten it and meet my own eyes without apology. In the bedroom, I open the window an inch and smell rain in the plaster. I dust a shelf and line up the survivors of other kitchens' sugar jar, tea tin, a chipped blue bowl. When the kettle finally sighs, I pour a cup and sit on the floor among boxes. I choose where the spoons will live, where the lamp should listen, where the blanket will wait. Ownership begins with small decisions repeated. I'm not rebuilding the past. I'm laying out a map only my feet can read, and it points toward morning, gently. There's a knock. Neighbors Maria and Daniel Reyes with two bright-eyed scouts, Mia and Leo. Maria brings a tin of cookies and the soft authority of someone who knows where spare screws live. Daniel offers a ladder, a toolbox, and weekends. Mia asks if I have any cats. Leo asks if ghosts use hallways. I tell them I have tea and stories, which is a beginning. Maria surveys the walls like a kindly general and says, "If you need anything, call." Between her words, I hear home. We stand in the doorway, sharing inventory paint colors, roof leaks, a garden asleep under weeds. They do not treat me as a project. They treat me as a person with a project. That distinction fills the room with oxygen. Before they leave, Mia presses a crayon drawing into my hand. Our house with 4 windows and 1 smiling sun. I tape it to the fridge. Suddenly, the kitchen knows my name and answers me back. That night, I open my notebook and write Day 1. I am not the woman left behind. I am the woman who chose again. The sentence steadies like a rail under my palm. I date the page, then list small intentions, sweep the porch, learn the creaks, plant something forgiving. I write a letter I won't send to my children. I am safe. I am busy. I am not for sale. I tuck the letter into the back, as if the notebook were a chest with a secret shelf. Before sleep, I walk the rooms in socks, counting windows, whispering thanks to each hinge that held. On the way to bed, I pause at the door, look across the street at the quiet building where I learned to be unafraid of my own company. I switch off the lamp and say aloud, just once, for the record, welcome home, Ellie. Tomorrow, we begin twice. With tea, with courage, with patient light. Morning arrives with useful kindness, Daniel shouldering a ladder, Maria balancing paint like sunshine in a can. I insist on priming. My hands tremble, yes, but they remember the length of a stroke and the patience of corners. The wall has been silent a long time. Silence, I've found, accepts color before it accepts words. We tape the trim, stir the can until the swirl goes honest, and begin. One slow band, then another. The room brightens first in smell, then in courage. Daniel hums. Maria narrates her plan like a recipe. 2 coats, gentle drying, no rushing grief. I keep my breath even. When the primer takes, I feel it taken me to a first layer. Ceiling stains. I don't need to keep explaining. We break for water. I flex my fingers and find steadiness returning in thin. Faithful lines. Good, Maria says, admiring the evenness. Good. I answer inside. Not new, not erased, simply ready. I tell the children how their great-grandfather dried seeds in yesterday's newspaper, how he crinkled headlines into spring. Mia leans close and says, "I like the sound your brush makes. A compliment like that steadies more than any railing." The bristles whisper along the plaster, a soft metronome that measures effort. Not age. Leo counts strokes and loses track. Delighted, Maria laughs and calls him our timekeeper. I show them a saucer where I catch drips, a rag that forgives mistakes. We talk about colors with names that sound like places Wheatfield, Riverstone, Early Apricot. I teach them how to clean a brush properly, how to coax out paint from the heel so tomorrow's work isn't stiff. In the pause between coats, we sit on the drop cloth and share cookies from a dented tin. Sugar loosens my shoulders, belonging loosens my jaw. When we stand, my arm still trembles, but now it trembles toward. I buy packets of seeds zinnias, marigolds, pole beans with illustrations that promise ladders of green. The yard does not object when I kneel. Soil receives without sermon. I loosen the earth, pull threads of old roots, and open small graves for a hopeful future. Into each pocket, I tuck something unsaid. I'm sorry I taught you to chase a finish line without teaching you a starting point. I wish I'd explained that money remembers who it serves. The trowel bites, the sun approves, a robin watches like a careful aunt. I water lightly, letting the ground drink first sips. Maria brings labels. We write names like vows and press them into dampness. I press my palm there too, the way you bless a forehead. I stand slow, brush grit from my knees, and feel taller for having been willingly low. When the wind moves across the yard, it seems to read my secrets kindly and keep them. Maria pours coffee into mugs that have survived other kitchens. "Do you ever get angry at your kids?" she asks, eyes steady. "Yes," I say. But anger doesn't feed flowers. She laughs, not because it's clever, but because it's true. We sip. Steam writes quiet letters on the air. I explain how anger, in my body, burns fast and bills high, while patience composts into something that can grow tomatoes. She tells me about nights she and Daniel argue softly in the hallway, so the children only hear murmurs, not blame. We compare recipes for repair, apology, warm. Explanation brief, follow-through generous. I admit I kept too many explanations and not enough promises. Maria doesn't try to fix me. She refills my cup. We sit on the steps and listen to the house make its little agreements, wood settling, pipes clearing. A garden truck rattles by. Somewhere a dog declares loyalty. We smile into the same morning. Mark and Jenna arrive with politeness polished to a shine you can see yourself in, but can't grip. They praise the fresh walls, approve the tidy edges, ask about contractors and costs as if curiosity were a favor. I pour tea, sweeten slowly, sugar melts at its own pace. Their eyes, meanwhile, dissolve to calculation and reform. I answer what I owe no more. I ask about work, about sleep, about whether the city still forgives late trains. They give me headlines, not stories. I refuse the bait of defensiveness. People who fear scarcity ask the wrong questions loudly. I choose smaller ones. Are you eating? Do your shoes hurt when they lift their cups and find them empty? I offer a second pour. They decline. Politeness again. At the door, Mark squeezes my shoulder. Jenna straightens a frame that doesn't need straightening. Their concern is real. Their intent is busier. I see both. I set the kettle back, let it breathe, after they leave. The house exhales, their footsteps fade, and something inside me puts down a heavy bag. Responsibility is a weight that mothers learn to lift with their ribs. Setting it down feels like discovering new oxygen in an old room. I close the door and rest my forehead against the wood. Cool and ordinary. Continue, my heart says, as simply as a turn signal. So I do. I wipe the table and choose a lighter cloth. I fold the drop cloth with care, because care is how you tell a day it mattered. Outside. Wind starts a small rehearsal in the maple. I write a short note to myself. Keep the porch light steady. Keep the boundary kind and tuck it behind the sugar tin. When I sit, I let silence sit with me like a capable friend. Somewhere in town, my children redraw a plan. Here, I redraw a life, line by honest line, without erasing what taught me to draw. Daniel tackles the roof with the caution of a man who has fallen before. I stand below as ground crew, collecting nails, handing up shingles, keeping a tally that no one needs but me. Usefulness has a sound, the clink of metal in a coffee can, the thud of a hammer finding its mark, my got it rising at the right moment. We break for lemonade. He insists the angle is tricky. I insist his patience is trickier. Back at it. I sweep the path, coil the extension cord in tidy loops. Small tasks are old hymns, the singing is the point. When a gust pushes sawdust into my hair, I pat it down and grin. I'm not fragile, I'm particular. Late afternoon, the roofline looks less like a shrug, more like a sentence that knows how it ends. Daniel climbs down creaky but proud. Teamwork, he says. Neighborhood, I answered. Both feel like sturdy shoes. Please don't climb high, Maria warns, eyeing the step stool like it's a cliff. The highest I'm climbing these days is feelings, I tease. And she laughs, the sound bright enough to bleach a stubborn stain. Humor returns to me the way flexibility does, hesitant at first, then grateful. We hang curtains together, both of us short, both of us learning which corner surrenders first. She tells me Mia is practicing piano. Leo refuses naps. Daniel forgets where he puts his tape measure as a matter of principle. I offer stories with soft edges, how my husband mislabeled jam jars and we ate tomato marmalade for a week to be kind. Between tasks we trade, small advice, stretch before you worry, label after you forgive. Maria nudges the stool farther from temptation. I let her. Pride that doesn't share ladders isn't pride, it's fear. We step back to admire the window. Outside, the garden waits like a patient sentence. Our first dinner in the nearly settled kitchen is simple pasta, forgiving of timing. A salad that forgives my knife, laughter that forgives interruptions. The children invent a game, guess the spice with your eyes closed. Mia names cinnamon on the first inhale. Leo insists oregano is green pepper's little brother. Daniel adds more cheese than dignity requires. I tell them love first found me beside a stove, when a jar of cinnamon cracked its lid and the whole room smelled like a holiday no one had yet earned. So what does a house smell like, Mia asks. Solemn, like a place people want to stay. I say, we pass bread, we pass stories, we pass the salt, with thanks spoken aloud. I insist on washing, Maria insists on drying. When the last plate clicks into the rack, the room feels baptized, not by ceremony, but by use. Belonging, it turns out, is a warm sink and 4 towels. That night, I write a letter I will not send children. I am well. I am busy the way gardens are busy, quietly, and with intent, if I regret anything. It is that I taught you to celebrate arrival more loudly than kindness. I did not show you how generosity keeps a house from echoing. I thought I had time. I thought love would explain itself while we hurried. I am learning how wrong and ordinary that was. I hope you are eating real meals. I hope your shoes don't pinch. If you come by, come with stories, not spreadsheets. If you cannot, then sleep without bargaining. Tomorrow, I will plant marigolds because they forgive beginners. I will keep my phone on the counter, not in my pocket, so it rings like a bell and not a summons. I sign my name Ellie, not mother, and feel the tenderness of telling the truth without asking it to perform. I test the locks, slide the deadbolt, and listen to the wind write its ancient letter down the chimney. This old house is learning my name again. Syllable by syllable kettle, lamp, stair, bed. I answer back by setting things where they belong and letting them stay. Ownership is a conversation between hand and hinge. In the front room, I switch off one lamp and let another hold the dark politely. I think of the years I spent apologizing to rooms that did not ask me to. Tonight, I say only good night. At the hallway mirror, I meet my own eyes and nod in agreement between equals. The floorboards approve with a gentle complaint. I whisper, I am Ellie, not as a correction, but as a key turning. Across the street, a single window glows in the care home. I bow, grateful for what it taught me how to be alone without being abandoned. Morning, and the basement calls not loudly, but with the authority of an unanswered letter. The stairs complain like old knees. I reassure them and myself. One careful step at a time. I carry a flashlight and a little bravery, both with fresh batteries. Down there the air is cooler, a library of prior lives. Boxes lean like tired neighbors. I speak of their dust with a small sneeze and an apology. At the far wall, a shape I didn't see yesterday introduces itself, a trunk, metal-edged, the lock scabbed with rust. I sit on the bottom step and let my breath arrive all the way. Not everything that waits needs rescuing. Some things need witnessing. I trace the lid with 2 fingers, memorize its temperature, and promise not to hurry. On the way back up, I count the steps and name them steady, careful, certain. At the landing, I smile. Tomorrow, I'll bring help. Today, I brought courage, and that was the first tool. In the basement corner sits a steel trunk. The lock bloomed with rust, like an old bruise. I touch the metal cold travels up my palm, asks a question I don't yet answer. Dust holds its breath. The bulb hums a thin note that sounds like worry practiced into habit. I do not call my children. I call Daniel. Some doors require hands that don't measure you first. When he steps onto the last stair, he studies the lock the way people study whether respectful, alert, unwilling to pretend. Let's see, he says, not brave, not afraid, just present. I find the screwdriver and a rag. He finds leverage and a patient angle while we work. The house listens when the lock finally sighs. A tiny red flake lands on my wrist like a warning softened into permission. I breathe in. 50 years of closets open inside my chest. Whenever you're ready, Daniel says. I nod, and the lid considers us. Daniel eases the trunk open the way you open a story you want to keep true. Hinges complain, then comply. Inside, the first thing is light, a crowded shimmer, metal and memory learning each other's names again. Necklaces thread around brooches, old velvet sulks in the corners. Rings wait like patient punctuation. I inhale once, twice, as if I've stepped into a room inside myself that I locked and somehow kept the key to. Daniel doesn't gasp. He is careful for me. Take your time, he says, folding himself small on the stair. I sit on the next step, palms on my knees, letting my heart find the floor. The air tastes of iron and linen. A watch ticks even though it has no battery. Maybe it's my pulse echoing. I think of brides and funerals, of promises that tarnish and ones that simply deepen. Well, I whisper, as much to the past as to Daniel. There you are. Jewelry, gold, a handful of stones with their own internal weather. I do not squeal or count. I sit on the step and let questions arrange themselves like coins on velvet. What does this heal? What wound answers to brightness? Money can repair roofs, buy medicine, hush one kind of fear. But loneliness. But the ache of not being believed. I turn a brooch over and find a pin bent by someone's hurry. I straighten it gently, as if apologizing across decades. The trunk smells faintly of perfume that I learned to keep secrets. I set aside one ring whose emerald is the exact green of my husband's favorite tie. This could save a year, Daniel offers softly. It could, I say, if I spend it on time. He looks at me and nods. That is the inventory that matters, hours returned. Choices widened, respect restored. I close my eyes and ask the brightest piece to behave. I only tell Arthur Blake. I pour the story carefully, the way you pour hot tea into a thin cup. He doesn't interrupt. When I finish, he says, you don't need to decide quickly. I answer, I need to decide correctly. Slow is welcome. He smiles into the phone. I can hear the creases. We discuss appraisals, chain of custody, Why a quiet bank box is kinder than a bedroom drawer. He offers names of people who won't make a feast of it. I write them down, then cross out the ones that feel hungry. You're protecting more than valuables, he says. I am, I say. I'm protecting the way my life ends. We set a morning to meet. When I hang up, I feel taller by an inch you can't see. Choice has a spine. I straighten mine, close the trunk, and thank its secret for arriving when I was ready to tell it where to live. That night my husband visits no words at first. Only the certainty of a familiar kindness. When he laughs, it sounds like a room exhaling. You chose your house, he says. Now choose your people. I wake with the taste of assurance on my tongue and understand the hardest lock is not on a trunk. It's on the appetite that gathers around it. Greed will bring chairs. It will bring a tablecloth and pretend it was invited. I stand at the sink and drink water until my hands stop arguing. Then I write 3 small rules on an index card. If it costs respect, it's too expensive. If it hurts the kind, I can't afford it. If it makes me hide, it doesn't belong to me. I tape the card inside the cupboard with the tea. When morning comes, my courage is where I left it reachable, readable, strong enough to hold the weight of jewelry without wearing it. The next day, I carry the valuables to a safe deposit box. The bank smells of pens and policies. I sign forms with a hand that remembers classroom cursive, and wedding papers, none of them shook like this, because none were this free. The clerk, a woman with sensible shoes and merciful eyes, slides the metal drawer open and steps back as if I'm about to pray. Perhaps I am. I place each piece deliberately, as you might set down heavy memories you intend to keep but not carry. The door closes with a sound like a verdict rewritten. Power, I discover, lives quietly when you're old enough to have misplaced the need to glitter. Outside, the street is the same street, but my shoulders have moved down from my ears. I buy a sandwich, sit on a bench, and eat the whole thing without apology. Preservation is a meal you taste slowly. I wipe my hands, then my eyes, and go home. Mark calls. Are you hiding something from me? I look at the sunlight on my table and answer. Yes, I'm hiding my exhaustion. You wouldn't know what to do with it. The line holds its breath. He tries again, softer, practicing tenderness like a foreign language. We're worried about you, Mom. I tell him worry is a flat tire. We can't go far on it. Tell me what you need, he offers, and I want to say what I needed was belief. Earlier, instead, I say, I need you to eat and sleep, and let me run my own errands. Silence unfolds a chair between us. I set it at the table and sit. He asks if I'm angry. No, I say, I'm busy. We end the call without ceremony. I place the phone face down and sip water. Not every truth must be explained. Some must simply be lived until they look like furniture. I water the garden. Streams find their habits, choose low places, carve small highways toward roots. Money moves like that too, I think. So does love. So do expectations descending, pooling, lifting only what they can. I angle the hose to spare a brave earthworm. Lean my hip into the spigot and watch a shallow trench become a plan. The marigolds tilt their faces where kindness runs. Beans consider the trellis, then commit. I have been both water and ground, both insistence and surrender. The trick is to remember when to be which. I turn off the tap, and the last droplets stitch themselves into the soil like punctuation. Inside, the sink receives the coil of hose streaked with dirt. My hands receive the sink. Everything returns to what can hold it. I wipe the counter and picture a future arranged by gravity. I choose dignity to the lowest places first. Then beauty, then whatever brightness refuses to brag. Maria asks why I keep a notebook. To remind tomorrow that today was real, I say. She nods, as if she's been waiting for the sentence to arrive. You need a thicker cover, she decides, and promises a journal with a spine that won't fold under grocery lists and truths. We sit on the porch steps, our knees almost touching, and read back a page. seeds planted, roof mended. A joke that made me laugh loud enough to scare a pigeon. Proof, she says, tapping the margin. I tell her I learned too late that unrecorded tenderness evaporates quickly. Memory needs a shelf. She tells me she keeps a drawer of Mia's piano programs, Leo's drawings of heroic vegetables, artifacts of ordinary. She calls them. We agree to trade archives someday when the house is quiet and our hands want to hold something that doesn't argue. By dusk, a small moth studies us like we're worth documenting. I begin to slow. The way afternoon slows a gentler light, longer shadows, rooms revealed in truer shapes. Steps take more thinking. Standing takes more feet. I tell the doctor what I need home. Here I breathe deeper. I say, like the air forgives me first. He listens, looks me in the eye, and writes without scolding. We adjust the medicines to kindness. We plan for rails, for rugs that don't scheme to trip me. At the pharmacy, I sit, while the receipts print like legal pads for a life. Maria drives, does not hover. I thank Daniel for lowering a shelf as if he's rehung a constellation. I practice resting before my body demands it. Rest is not surrender. It's a tactic learned too late by women who thought usefulness required endurance. In the evening, I nap in a chair that keeps its promises. When I wake, the house puts my name back where it belongs. I draft the first will names. Reasons, a map of gratitude. I don't punish, I arrange. Justice, if you hold it right, can be gentle. I write Maple Ridge Care beside a sum that means something, not everything. I write Mia and Leo where hope can grow interest. I write Maria and Daniel into the guardianship of a story that fed me when I was empty. For Mark and Jenna, I leave a sentence I hope money can't erase. Joy is earned in kitchens, not courted in ledgers. I pause and breathe, check the math, check my heart. I imagine the room where it will be read, the polished table, the careful lawyer, the way shock and relief share a chair when truth finally sits down. I sign my name slowly, as if introducing myself. Ellie, once. I wrote that beside someone else's. Today, I write it beside a plan that refuses to harm. I set down the pen and let evening collect itself. Through the window, the Reyes house glows gold lamp, small shoes abandoned under a chair. Laughter that forgets to be quiet. Sound travels like soup on a cold day, simple, complete. I hold the edge of this sill and decide what I already knew. When I leave, that light should not dim. Children should have a reason to keep inventing games. To believe ordinary effort yields feast. I straighten the papers and tuck them away. Tomorrow I'll call Arthur and make it official. Tonight I make tea and thank the kettle for its reliable song. I think of my mother's hands folding towels, of my husband's habit of overwatering ferns, of the first house key I ever learned to trust. I whisper toward the shared fence. Keep going. The answer returns in the clatter of forks and a burst of humor. I smile, and the room agrees. I begin handing Maria the small scaffolding of my days. The medication list with circles around the ones that argue with breakfast. Arthur's number written twice, once neat, once large. She doesn't perform heroics, she listens. That is enough. She repeats instructions back the way nurses do. Careful but not bossy, and asks where I keep the spare inhaler, the good pen, the stubborn corkscrew. We tour the drawers of my life. She learns their dialects. I show her the folder labeled, "When This Gets Real," and we both smile at the truth of its name. She doesn't flinch when I say hospice out loud. She just adjusts the curtain so the light lands kindly on my chair. When she leaves, the room doesn't feel like it has less Ellie in it. It feels like it has more air. Delegation, I decide, is love that trusts someone else to hold the cup without spilling the story. Mia and Leo arrive with artwork for sons, 2 houses, 1 grandmother taller than the trees because that's how love works. Children color reality simpler than adults. And somehow closer. This is you, Mia announces, pointing to a figure with a green dress and very accurate glasses. And that, Leo says, is your brave garden. I tape the pages along the hallway like stained glass you can touch. The crayons make a doctrine. Sky is bluer when it's next to yellow laughter. Brown earth smiles when a bean finds it. Do you like it? Mia asks, already knowing. It fixes the walls, I say, and she nods solemnly, as if I've passed a test. We eat oranges, the kind that missed sweetness when you peel them, and I tell them about the first time I grew zinnias. They're like fireworks that learned manners. I say, later, when they leave, the house keeps the pictures and the scent proof that Joy signed the guest book. Mark and Jenna come by, 10 minutes of presence with their eyes married to their phones. I ask, "Are you well?" they say. "We're fine," a word that has collapsed for lack of meaning. Fine is a coat you put on when your weather won't cooperate. I watch their thumbs moving urgent to nowhere and wonder when I taught them that quiet is empty. "Do you need anything?" Jenna asks, gaze grazing my cheek without stopping. "Your time, not your hurry," I think, but I say, "I have what I need." Mark mentions insurance up to date. Right, and offers a list of specialists with reputations like marble. I thank him and pour tea. We sip in a choreography that used to be comfort. When they stand, they hug me lightly, the way people do when their arms belong to the next appointment. After the door closes, I sit, the kettle sighs. I let the silence breathe me back into myself. I sign the final will. Half to Maple Ridge Care, the place that held me on one long night I won't pretend was kind, but was necessary. Half to Mia and Leo, the children who returned home to its original meaning, a light that waits, a chair that forgives, a garden that answers. Arthur reads each clause, steady as a metronome, and asks if I want to revisit anything. I revisit my pulse instead. "It's sure. This is not punishment," I tell him. "It's placement." He nods. We add a note about the scholarship fund Maria and Daniel will steward, because money behaves better when it has a job with a human face. I sign in the ink my husband favored, a blue that remembers oceans. The pen doesn't shake, the room does, almost imperceptibly, as if the house exhaled approval. We witness, we date, we close the folder. I feel a door settle on its hinges. Perfectly. For Mark and Jenna. I leave one short sentence, "Joy cannot be purchased." You've already spent the money you took. Writing it releases a weight between my shoulder blades I didn't know I'd been carrying. I do not add scolding or explanation. Words, like salt, do their best work when you don't pour the whole shaker. Arthur considers the line a long moment and says, "Clear. I imagine my children reading it and hope the silence after will be useful. Not cruel useful. A pause large enough to choose differently next time." I smooth the page as if apology could iron itself in. It cannot. But clarity can keep from wrinkling. I ask Arthur to tuck the sentence where it won't be overlooked and to read it slowly, even if the room jitters. He promises. I lean back and feel my spine thank me for choosing a small truth over a beautiful excuse. I write another letter to Maria and Daniel. "Dear ones, not because you helped me, but because you helped life itself stay kind. I list ordinary mercies that became architecture ladders held. Soup delivered hot, laughter that edited fear without erasing caution. I thank them for trusting my competence instead of rehearsing my limits. I write down the day Mia called marigolds sunbuttons and Leo swore oregano was Pepper's little brother. I seal those phrases inside because I want them to open the envelope and hear a house speaking. At the end, I write, "Use what I've left to teach abundance without bragging." Then I fold the letter carefully as if it were a shirt I wanted them to wear and press red wax until the seal cools like a kept promise. The stamp is a small key. Fitting, I think. Not every door needs opening. Some need witnessing. And the right hand's on the knob. I ask Arthur to deliver the letters only after the funeral. He studies my face, not to argue, but to be sure. "Are you certain?" he asks. "Certain," I say. "I don't need performances while I'm still breathing." He smiles with sadness, Lawyers learn the choreography of grief earlier than most. We decide who must be present at the reading, who may, and who will make the room harder to oxygenate. He agrees to be the keeper of timing, the quiet conductor who lifts a baton when hearts can bear the music. Before he leaves, he adjusts my blanket the way a brother might and sets a glass of water within reach. "Call for anything," he says. "I'm calling for enough," I answer. After the door closes, I feel time move to a lower gear, a tractor instead of a race car. Good. I think important journeys are better taken without skidding. I tell Maria about my husband, the way he laughed too hard at the wrong part of jokes, the way he watered plants like a sermon, the way he taught me never to let fear fill out my forms. He said, "Don't outsource your courage." I recall, and the sentence warms the room. Maria doesn't respond with a quote of her own. She holds my hand the way shore holds tide firmly. Without possession, we sit inside a kindness that prefers presence to advice. I show her the wedding photo where my hair behaves and his tie refuses. She smiles, recognizing a marriage by its small rebellions. We don't tidy his memory, we dust it. At length she says, "He would like this house. He would like your house," I answer. And we both know we mean the kind he carried where ordinary effort fed everyone. And even silence got a seat at the table. I tire quickly now. Effort runs its tab sooner. But each morning I pour tea, even for a single sip. Small rituals keep the day from smudging. I smooth the duvet, set 3 pills on a saucer, open the window just enough to let the air say what it needs to. Maria texts before groceries. Daniel checks the smoke alarms because dads do. I practice economy of steps, of words, of worry. I keep a chair by the sink for resting between kindnesses. Sometimes I nap mid-sentence and wake to find the thought still waiting. Polite as a coat on a hook. Gratitude becomes a muscle lift, release, repeat. I thank my body aloud for what it still does, without applause, circulate, digest, balance, shimmer. In the evening, I place my cup in the sink and feel a quiet completion. The day holds. It does not spill. That is enough for days like these. Winter presses its face to the windows and reads the house. At night, wind finds the places we haven't yet caulked and writes its opinion through the seams. I listen. I'm ready. I whisper, not because I want to leave, but because I have arrived. Readiness is a warm coat, not a bus ticket. I take stock papers signed, letters sealed. Laughter archived on a refrigerator with magnets shaped like fruit. My breath measures the room in calmer inches. I remember the girl I was, swift to apologize. Slow to ask, I tell her we did fine. I think of Mark and Jenna, and the version of me that believed rush equaled love. I forgive her, too. Snow begins without rehearsal. The house answers with a soft groan that means we are holding. I tuck the blanket higher, let the kettle hum one more time, and tell the night what it wants to hear. I trust the morning, whichever one comes. I close my eyes in Maria's hands. No thunder, no trumpet, warmth, which is to say, everything. The room doesn't darken, it deepens. All the sharp edges go soft, like bread left out for birds. Breath takes its final inventory and decides it has counted enough. I feel my husband's laugh nearby and let it escort me. If there is a hallway, it is short and full of familiar coats. If there is a door, it opens the way good doors do quietly, with excellent manners. My name is said back to me by every kindness I failed to forget. The kettle, at rest, keeps its promise. Maria's thumb continues the small circles it learned on my wrist, then stops because I am simply not here in the old way. I am at home in the last way. The house approves. It always knew where this narrative was headed toward light we use. And leave, I no longer tell it, but the story continues. The funeral is modest, casseroles solve problem within their jurisdiction. Neighbors arrive with weathered hands and new flowers. The choir sings like ordinary people trying their very best, which has always been my favorite genre. On Arthur's desk, My envelope waits red wax unbroken, the stamp a small key that remembers its job. After the service, Maria carries a vase I would have liked, and Daniel carries a grief he won't put down too quickly. Mia and Leo sit on the front step and decide which cloud most resembles a garden. In the quiet that follows kindness home, Arthur straightens the papers, clears his throat, and opens what I left timed to land after the part where love gathers and before the part where fighting might apply for a permit. The room listens. A life arranges itself, one more time, into sentences that chose their weight carefully. If you're hearing this, it means I am at rest. Please don't be sad for long. Treat this as a small exercise in rearranging love. Take a breath, look around the room, and notice what remains when the performative parts of grief go home. A chair that still holds you, a light that behaves, hands that remember how to pass water and tissues. I have arranged my affairs the way I arranged my kitchen drawers by use, by honesty, by reach. What I leave is not a judgment, it's a map. It points toward the people who stayed, and the places that steadied me when the floor wavered. If you loved me, honor that love by choosing gentleness over spectacle, clarity over noise. There is enough here for the work at hand, and not enough for fighting. That was intentional. Let the reading be a rite of accurate memory. Then, please, go home and cook something warm. Arthur reads the first clause, voice calm as a metronome. The house and its contents to be tended by Maria and Daniel Reyes. I wrote beneath it, in my own hand. Because you understand the meaning of staying. Staying is not parking. It is attention, maintenance, soup on hard days, boundaries with clean edges. These walls learned their new names because Maria and Daniel taught them to listen. They know how to keep windows honest and tempers low, how to keep a ladder steady while someone older insists on dusting the top shelf. They will not museum the rooms. They will use them, which is the highest respect, in their care. My chairs will continue to forgive knees. My porch will continue to say hello first, and the mailbox will continue to prefer letters to bills. People ask what legacy means. It means a door that still opens the same way, for the same reasons. When Arthur reads the portion for Maple Ridge Care, the room stirs the way curtains do when a storm is choosing a street. I have left a meaningful sum to the place that received me by a cold, automatic door. It was not mercy that night, but it was safety, which sometimes wears a harder face. The gift is not about gratitude for perfection. It is respect for necessity. No long night deserves to be dismissed. With funds, a hallway gains softer light. A nurse gets a second pair of hands. A lonely hour finds a chair with music near it. Some will say I owed them nothing, perhaps, but I owe my story balance. The door that closed taught me to open another. This is me opening one more for someone else. On a night when their children are practicing love poorly and a building must stand in as mother. When Arthur reaches the line, the remainder, in equal trust for Mia and Leo Reyes. Two children will probably look at each other and not understand the arithmetic of love yet. That's all right. Understanding arrives on little feet. I want them to grow up knowing that kindness accrues interest and curiosity multiplies. Let this money be a trellis, not a destination tuition, not trophies, instruments, and books, not bragging. I hope they learn to write letters that begin with thank you and end with how can I help you. I hope they use some on small things that feel big field trip fees paid discreetly for a friend. Hot chocolate shared when winter forgets manners. If anyone asks why children, say because they saw me as a person, not a project, and because gardens need future gardeners. Consider this seed money, in the literal and truest sense. Mark is angry, Jenna is disappointed. Once, I was their mother before they were adults. Now I hope they will become decent before they become rich. This isn't punishment, It's instruction that arrives at the only time it can late, and hopefully still useful. I want them to learn that proximity isn't presence, and inheritance isn't intimacy. They will feel betrayed by the absence of the windfall they rehearsed. Let that feeling pass through like weather. If they are brave, they will notice what remains afterward: capacity, time to repair, the choice to call without an agenda. They may say, I loved strangers better. I did not. I loved dependability better. I valued devotion over performance. If they ever ask for a rubric, give them mine. Show up, listen, carry, return, repeat. That algorithm produces wealth you can sleep beside. The other kind rattles. They sue. Of course they do. Courtrooms tidy what kitchens cannot. The judge, having met me on paper and in testimony, finds me competent. Justice is not a tender mother, but today it speaks in a small, even voice that does not flinch. My signatures stand, my reasons hold. The law, when not hijacked, behaves. Let there be no triumph in this, only relief, the way you feel when a fever breaks and the sheets cool. Arthur thanks the court the way a careful man thanks weather for not worsening. Maria squeezes Daniel's hand beneath the table. Mark stares at the floor where his reflection refuses to help. Jenna rubs a spot on her wrist as if the watch there could rewind. Outside, traffic continues. Uninterested and constant, that, too, is a mercy the world doesn't stall for our private earthquakes. We steady ourselves and join it again. Mark and Jenna leave Brookhaven. It's a long road, and I hope it teaches what I did not manage to teach, that shame is a poor compass and apology is excellent glue. Without me to push against, perhaps they will find their own north. I wish them meals that quiet their nervous systems, friends who tell the truth without ceremony, and mornings that begin without bargaining. Sometimes the lesson requires the teacher to be absent so the student hears the room. If they ever return, let someone say, we kept her chair. Sit. Tell us what you've learned. If they never return, water the porch plants anyway. Not all circles close. Some become spirals and continue beyond view. I release them with an old blessing worn to softness. May your hands remember how to build, and your eyes remember who held you when you couldn't. Maria and Daniel establish the Mildred Ellie Fund for Town Scholarships, a name that stitches old kindness to new purpose. I asked for this line on the plaque for kindness, not for keeps. Money, like water, behaves best when it moves. The fund buys clarinets and calculators, shoes that don't blister promise. Bus passes to internships, a dentist visit that stops a quiet ache from becoming a loud crisis. Applications will be read at the kitchen table with tea rings and honest questions. Preference given to effort, to caretakers, to the ones who arrive early and leave lights off, if extra remains. Let it refurbish a library corner where a child first decides books are a kind of home. Let town gossip say the fund is inconveniently generous. Let it also say Maria runs it like a garden. Nothing flashy, everything growing, and plenty of compost for mistakes. The house comes fully into itself. Roof sure, paint faithful. The garden keeps its small promises on scheduled daffodils like brass buttons in March. Beans climbing their ladders by June. Marigolds stitching sunset along the path in August. Each time a thank you letter arrives from a scholarship student. Mia and Leo take turns reading aloud. Their voices stumble on earnestness, then find a rhythm generosity recognizes. Maria tapes the notes beside crayon suns from years ago. Daniel measures growth not in inches but in chairs added to the table. Holidays gather without audition. Neighbors borrow and return. The porch light learns the faces of late shift nurses and shy teenagers walking home. Grief never leaves entirely. It simply agrees to carry one end of the couch while joy carries the other. That balance furnishes rooms worth living in. The house, as planned, keeps choosing mourning. When people ask about me, let them say she chose her house, then chose us. if life is a chain of choices. I'm glad mine were late and correct. Tell them I was not brave so much as consistent. Tell them the kettle remembered my name, and so did the neighbors. Tell them my will was a map, not a verdict, and that it led to music on weeknights, to roof lines that stopped shrugging, to children who could afford to become themselves. If anyone asks what I would change, say I would have started sooner and forgiven faster. If anyone asks what I left behind, say a chair that welcomes, a garden that forgives beginners, a sentence that fits in a pocket. Be gentle, be clear, be useful, then make tea, and let the steam write the rest. I keep a small shelf for the days that changed shape, a teacup with a hairline crack, a seed packet with dirt still in the fold, a key that never fit any lock but reminded me to try. After the will was read and the casseroles cooled, the house and I practiced ordinary again. Ordinary. When you tend it, grows generous. It taught me to measure a day by what I could make gentler the corner of a rug that stopped plotting to trip me. A note left for Maria milk, lemons, and a thank you no one owed. If you're listening for a grand lesson, I'm afraid mine wears an apron. Work that fits the hand. Boundaries that don't bruise. Money that moves instead of posing. The kind of love that brings a ladder and holds it without commentary. I learned, late but thoroughly, that presence is a verb. Show up. Listen, carry, return, repeat. Do it until the room learns your name and answers back. Regret. Yes, a little. I wish I had taught my children sooner that speed is not tenderness, that success without service is a loud, hungry guest. But remorse can be compost if you turn it often feed the new with what the old couldn't use. That's what the fund is for. That's what the porch light is for. That's what a garden teaches with its patient arithmetic. If you need a benediction, take this one and tuck it where you keep the spare envelopes. Be gentle, be clear, be useful when you cannot be any of those. Be quiet and make tea. The steam will remember you, and so will the people who were brave enough to stay. I am Ellie Hart. Once I was left, and then I learned to bring myself home. The key I kept in my cardigan wasn't metal. It was the decision to turn it. The kettle remembered my name. The chair kept its gentle dip. And a porch light waited without scolding. Across the street, I found a family. Not by blood, but by use ladders held. Soup warmed, laughter that edited fear. I put money back where it behaves on a trellis for children. In halls where long nights are shorter. Under a plaque that reads, for kindness, not for keeps. If you need a map, open a notebook and write what is true enough to sign. If you need courage, make cinnamon tea and hold it with both hands. And if you write a letter, send it to the one who taught you to stay even when a door once closed. Tell them this: I stayed, and I kept the light on.